Hi guys, this is Claudia of CodyHouse.com and today I want to show you how you can create a sticky hero section. And to give you an example, this is a component we just released on CodyHouse.com. So if we scroll, we have our hero section here. So you see there is this asset, this background image. If I keep scrolling, the image becomes fixed and the content of the section is revealed and it scrolls above the media element, the image. There is another example with the background video. So this is our video here. So if we keep scrolling, the video becomes fixed. You can see that I'm still scrolling from the scroll bar and the content scrolls above the video. Okay, so this is the effect we want to create. And the idea behind this effect is our hero section is gonna be composed of two different parts. The first one is gonna be the media part, let's say, so for example the background image, and the other one is gonna be the content of the section. So when we scroll, we want the media part, so the image, to become fixed while the content scrolls above the image. And we will see how to create this effect, and I can tell you we are not gonna use JavaScript for this effect. Okay, to create the component we are gonna use the CodyHouse framework. You can download it from GitHub. I've already downloaded the framework, so in the terminal I'm gonna move to the framework folder. So first of all, you need to install the node modules, so npm install. And I have already done that. So if you haven't, just hit enter and wait for the end of the installation. Once this is over, just run npm run gulp watch and start. Okay. This is the CodyHouse framework folder. I'm inside the index.html file. And before creating the sticky hero section, I'm gonna create a section with just some content in it because we want to be able to scroll in the page. So section, and I'm gonna give it a class of container small, and also add some margin. And I'm using these classes here. They are all utility classes that you find inside the CodyHouse framework. So container class for the width of the element and margin classes. And inside, let's create some text. So I'm gonna have the text component class for the typography and just a paragraph with some content. Okay, I'm also gonna create another one of this section here. And in the middle, I'm going to insert our sticky hero section. So let's create it. So section, sticky hero. And we just said that this section is gonna have two different parts. The first one is the media part. So div, sticky hero, and let's call it media. And this is gonna be the part for the background image. So I'm gonna also add an area hidden of true because there's no content here. We don't want the screen reader to announce this element. And then the content. And let me also create some content. So again, I'm going to use some utility classes of the framework. And then let's create in each one. So let's see the result. Of course, we see only the content at the moment because the media part is still empty. We need to set a background, to add a background image to this element here. So in the style file, let's start adding some style to the media element, the media part. So sticky hero media. And first of all, I want this element to have the height of the viewport. So this white section here is our media. So let's add a background image. So that's gonna be more clear. So background. Okay, I already have downloaded an image from Unsplash. This is the image we are gonna use. So, and it's a background image. And then I'm gonna set a no repeat, center, center. And then I also need a background size of cover and save. So, okay, so this is the section with some fake content. We have the first part, which is the media part, so the background image, and then we have this content here. And also the content, I want it to be, to have the same height of the viewport. So here, sticky, hero, content. And also let's center the content in this section. So I can set a display of flex and then an align items center and save. So at this point we have this hero section. It starts here. So we have the first part, which is the media, so the background image. It has the height of the viewport. And then we have the second part, the content of the section. Again, it has the height of the viewport. So at this point, to create the sticky effect, we want this section here, the media part, to become, let's say, fixed when the top of this element reaches the top of the viewport, and while we want the content to keep scrolling. So how to do that? We can use the sticky value of the CSS position property. So basically, let's say that an element with a position of sticky, let me add this here, is an element, the position of an element sticky, let's say toggles between being relative and being fixed according to the scrolling value. So basically the element behaves like a relative position element until an offset position, let's say, is met in the viewport, and that at that point the element becomes fixed. So in our case, the offset top we want is 0. Basically, as soon as the offset of this element is 0, we want it to be sticky. And we can, when you use the position sticky, you can set the offset using the top property. So at this point we are saying, okay, as soon as this element reaches the top of the viewport, its position has to be fixed, not relative anymore. And in fact, if you see, now if I keep scrolling, you can see the scroll bar moving here. The element is not moving anymore. And we are not seeing the content yet, and that's just an issue with the Z index. So we just said that position sticky means the position of the element toggles between relative and fixed. So we need to add a position relative to the content as well to make sure the content is visible above the image when you are scrolling. So let me do this again. So we are scrolling. At this point, the offset with the viewport is 0. If we keep scrolling, the image is fixed, and we can see the content now scrolling above the image. Of course, when you use the position sticky, the position, when the element is fixed, let's say the position is not really fixed. The element still has to be inside its parent. So if you keep scrolling, you see at a certain point the element, the image, goes away with the section. Okay, that's it. So this is the effect we wanted to create. And as you see, we don't need JavaScript for that. We just needed a position sticky, which by the way has a great support nowadays. So it's supported in all modern browsers. For example, it doesn't work in Internet Explorer, but still, even if position stick is not supported, what you see is basically an image on top of some content, so the content is still accessible. Okay, now we can push this effect a little bit more. So, for example, when the image becomes visible, we can change the style of the image. For example, if we go back to the CodyHouse component, there are some variation here. And for example, with the scale variation, when the image becomes fixed, you see there is this nice scroll down effect, and then the element keeps scrolling away. So this is what we want to recreate. So we need to be able to detect when this element becomes fixed, and to do that we are gonna need a little bit of JavaScript. So I have created my main.js file, and I have already imported it inside the index.html file. You can see here right after the util.js. Util.js is a JavaScript file you find in the CodyHouse framework with some utility functions that we are gonna use. So here, first of all, let's store the sticky hero sections in a variable. So here, let me add the JS sticky hero class. And in the JS file, I'm gonna define this variable, sticky heroes. And I'm gonna get all the elements that have a class of JS sticky hero. And then if we have sticky hero sections, so if sticky heroes length is bigger than 0, then we have some sticky heroes, so we are gonna need to do some things. So for var I equal to 0. So we are gonna loop through all the sticky sections. I'm gonna define an object here so that we are gonna handle this behavior using the object, and the object is gonna be a sticky hero object. And I'm gonna pass the hero element to this object. So here we can create a new sticky hero and pass our sticky hero. Okay, and here the element property of the object is gonna be the hero section. I'm also gonna open the console here so that we can see if we make mistakes. Okay, and for sure I'm gonna need an init sticky hero function. I'm gonna pass this to this function. So here, okay, so what do we want to do? We said that we want to detect when this element becomes fixed, and there is no, at the moment, there is no event that is automatically emitted, so we need to detect it in a different way. And we are gonna use the intersection observer API for that. Let's say that the intersection observer API provides a way to observe changes in the intersection of an element with the viewport. So, for example, if we observe the content element, the intersection observer is gonna tell us when the intersection of this element with the viewport, for example, becomes 1 or more than 0. So this is what we want to observe, So when the intersection of this element with the viewport becomes bigger than 0, we want to add a class to the hero section. So if we go back to the style.scss just for 1 second, basically the class we want to add, we can define it here. And this is gonna be, of course, a variation of the sticky hero class. For example, we can call it media is fixed. And when this class is added to the sticky hero section, we want the sticky hero media, for example, to scale down. To scale down an element, of course, we can use the transform and scale 0.9, for example. And you see now the image is scaled down. So I'm gonna move this from here, because we want the element to scale down only when this class is applied to the sticky hero element. And here I'm just gonna add a transition, because of course we want to have a smooth scale down. So transition to the transform property, and the duration is gonna be half a second, and I'm gonna pass a timing function here, and I'm gonna use the transition is in out, which is a pre-made timing function that you can find inside the CodyHouse framework in the shared style global. Okay, we don't see anything yet because we still have to detect when the element is fixed and add this class here. So if we go back to the JS, we were saying, okay, let's use the intersection observer API, and basically we are gonna observe the content of the section, and as soon as this content intersects the viewport, let's add the class. So here we are gonna use the content, so I'm gonna create a property of the object for the content, and this is gonna be this.element .get elements by class name, and the class name is sticky hero content. And we know we have just one element. I'm gonna take the first element of this array. And here, let's use the intersection observer. So let me define a variable observer, and this is gonna be new intersection observer. Okay, so the first parameter that we have to pass is the callback function. So basically this is a function that is gonna be executed every time the intersection of this element with the viewport changes. So let's call it sticky callback. And let me bind also the hero. I'm gonna write it down first and then explain everything. And then as second parameter, we have to pass the threshold. So threshold, and this is gonna be an array 0, 0.1, 1. Okay. Now let me define this function here, sticky callback. Okay, so here you see I'm using the sticky callback function and I'm binding the hero element. So binding the hero element means that here, if I use the keyword, this keyword, this is gonna be the hero. So this is hero. Okay, and then the threshold. So what's the threshold? Basically the threshold 0, passing this threshold, we are saying every time the intersection changes, and this intersection is 0, 0.1 or 1, execute this callback function. Okay, and now we need to observe the element. So observer.observe, and I'm gonna pass the content because the content is the element we want to observe. So hero.content, and save. So here in the sticky callback, so the callback function of the intersection observer gets as the first argument the entries So what are those entries? Let me console.log entries so that we can take a look. So you see when we scroll, this is the entries. It is an array, and there is just one element because we are observing just one element here, hero content. And there are some properties here, and some of them we are gonna need those. So for example, the intersection ratio, you see it's 0.5. So let me scroll. You see each time now the intersection, if I open this last one, the intersection is 0.1. So the intersection observer has detected this threshold here, let's say. So the intersection ratio is the value we want to be bigger than 0. So basically, if this is bigger than 0, then that means that this content is partially visible. And then there is also the target, you see the div sticky hero content, which gives us the element that we are observing. Okay, so I'm gonna write those here. So we are gonna use the target, and we are gonna use the entries, the intersection ratio. So basically what we want to do is when the intersection ratio is bigger than 0, then add the class we just defined here, the sticky hero media is fixed class. Otherwise, remove the class. So here, I'm gonna define a bool variable, and this is gonna be, let's say, entries 0 dot intersection ratio bigger than 0. And so we can toggle the class. I'm using here the toggle class, which is an utility function defined inside the util.js file. So I'm gonna pass the element I want to add or remove the class to. And then the second element is gonna be the class name. And then there is the bool. So when this is true, the bool is true, the class is added. When this is false, the class is removed. Let's save. And you see, as soon as the element is fixed, it scales down. And then if we keep scrolling, then it goes away with the text. Okay. That's it for today. So so in this video, we saw how you can create this sticky effect only using CSS and the position sticky, the sticky value of the position property. And then we used just a little bit of JavaScript to improve this effect a little bit. So adding a class to the media element to change its style when it is fixed. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you soon.